nobody makes money when they sell a property. We all make money on the buy and through the operations and executing a business plan. I think you can do that in any market, whether it's primary, secondary, or tertiary market.
Jay Biggins, a seasoned entrepreneur with over 23 years of expertise in enhancing multifamily assets, founded multihousing.com in 2000.
What I like about multifamily, I like to call it I'm making money while I'm making money. And what I mean by that is if you buy a piece of land or you buy a single family house, in large part, you have money going out constantly. But what I find with the multifamily is while I'm transitioning an asset and I'm collecting the rents, I'm also gaining on the equity side. When everybody's running for the hills, that's the time to buy.
Warren Buffett's famous quote, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. What do you think is the most common reason that people give up, in this business or any business? Welcome to another edition of Lifetime Cash Flow through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Cleef, and I am absolutely thrilled you're here. And you guys are in for a real treat today. We've got an absolute rock star in the business here today. His name is Jay Biggins, and he owns multihousing.com, and he's forgotten more about multifamily than you and I will probably ever know. And so I'm very, very excited to get into, I'm sure, a wide-ranging conversation with Jay. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, sir. Very kind. Maybe a little bit too kind, but I appreciate it nonetheless.
I think it's dead on. And so why don't you start, by just, I know you've done a ton of stuff in the affordable housing space, and just kind of give us a little bit of your background. Did you start in real estate? Did you start somewhere else? Why'd you end up in multifamily? Some highlights on your career so far, and yeah.
Okay, well, my start's probably a little bit unconventional and certainly a little bit embarrassing, but mostly got started in multifamily because I really couldn't get a job at the time. So I started buying duplexes and triplexes.
When?
Probably around 2000.
Wow.
I'd sold a business, I had a non-compete, and so I was just kind of displaced. So I started, it's like I said, buying small properties, and then
in West Palm.
It started Palm Beach County, and I was buying maybe 6 units, 12 units, and then I started doing condo conversions while that was a thing. And then the market started to shift. And as the market shifted, I thought, oh man, what am I going to do now? I can't buy these buildings and convert to condos and sell them out. Nobody's buying condos anymore. So I started buying apartment complexes, and I thought that I was going to have to just make a living just on the cash flow. But what I quickly realized was that the upside was tremendous if you value add. And so we started, buying, a little bit larger deals, still small, very small, 40, 50 unit properties. And then after...
All in Florida still?
Generally, Florida and North Carolina.
Okay.
Going back to the early 2000s. And then, I had one property that I ended up making a really nice gain on, and it allowed me to start doing 2 deals at a time instead of just 1 deal a year.
And this was all with your own personal funds?
Yeah, I've never done a capital
syndicate,
raise.
You didn't raise capital?
Right,
okay.
I wouldn't even know how.
Wow.
But I started buying 2 deals at a time, and then 4, and then 5, and then 7, and then 10. And
this was all pre-crash or after the crash?
It led up to the crash.
Right.
And then, that's when I had made my first really large gain, probably 2010, and started being able to do multiple deals at a time. So, now at any given time, I'm buying and selling 1,000 units simultaneously.
Really? Still even today?
Yeah, even today. Yeah, I'm pretty bullish, actually.
We talked about that briefly before we started recording, because I'm a massive bear right now. But of course, you don't know this about me, but I lost $50 million in 2008 and 9. I got my ass handed to me. So, I'm dragging around that bag of memory, and things feel eerily similar to me. There are a lot of differences, but just
which is why you should be bullish.
Okay.
So
Talk to me.
It's a paradigm shift, right? Like
right.
Everybody sees the world through their own eyes and through their own certain set of glasses. So really, you were a victim of your own success. You have to first make $50 million to lose $50
Very
million.
true. Yeah.
So if you're seeing some parities, which I agree with you wholeheartedly, what does that tell you? That tells you there's some opportunities coming.
Oh, no. This, trust me, you didn't hear that side of my conversation. I'm in a lot of cash right now. I'm rubbing my hands together. I'm looking at it as opportunity, and that's what I talk about on the show. But I'm not bearish on the opportunity. I'm bearish on the economy and what's going to happen.
Understood. Agreed.
Okay.
Wholeheartedly there too.
Yeah.
But, you know, so I've been fairly pessimistic for like the last 5 or 6 or 7 years,
Right.
because I've just felt like, you know, we're going to go off a cliff.
Right.
Now we didn't exactly go off a cliff, but the market's gotten significantly worse over the past, 12 or 18 months, and probably will for a little bit longer. But I think it's a really healthy market.
Well, I do too. Well, okay, healthy market, interesting. I think there needs to be some resettling, for lack of a better word. But there's 1.6 trillion in commercial debt coming due by the end of next year. I mean, and they either have to refinance or they have to sell. Sales are down 75% year over year first quarter. I don't know what second quarter looks like, but in refinancing is not easy right now because of the rates and everything.
If I listen to all that all the time, I just want to shoot myself. Okay. So I try not to listen to all that all the time.
So
look, we know it's looming.
Right.
But if you run to like safety plays, which I have my own little formula on a safety play, you're going to be all right now, tomorrow, the next day, the day after.
Oh, I agree.
There's controllable and uncontrollable risks. So, what are the uncontrollable risks? Well, interest rates, insurance. Supply, insurance, sure. So let's manage and mitigate with what we know now about those things. And if we're resetting prices based on where those are today, and we all think that maybe they get better tomorrow, but maybe they don't. But if you're underwriting on those bases today, I think you're in pretty good shape.
So I agree. If they make sense with all of that, right, I completely agree. But here's the thing. The reason I think we're going to see more opportunity than we may think, there's a lot of bridge debt done the last couple of years, and those guys are sucking wind. I'm just telling you.
Well,
I'm seeing it. I have friends, big, super successful, impressive operators that are freaking out right now. So,
well, it's got to come, right? There's a reckoning that has to happen.
Yeah.
I just don't know that it's necessarily going to be catastrophic. It will be for some people. If you lose all your money, it's catastrophic.
Right.
I don't plan on losing any money.
Right. Well, same. But, I do think, like I said, I know some large operators that, we were talking about Grant earlier. I saw one of them at Grant's Growth Con that I went to in Vegas. And this is a guy I really respect. I'm not going to say his name, but he was sweating. He said he had 13 assets he's in trouble on. And so, I just... I hate it for him. I mean, I know that he'll survive like I survived after losing everything that I lost. It's no fun when it happens. But I also believe that on the flip side of that, there's going to be opportunity. So we're about ready to roll out a fund, an opportunity fund we've put together. We've got, it'll bear interest. So the investors will have interest while the money's in there prior to taking down deals. But I think, in my view, the opportunity is going to be in someone's ability to close and not have a funding an equity issue or anything like that. And that's one of the reasons that, I'm headed that direction. But I'd love to get your insight on that.
Well, we always, for 20 years, I've been capturing that little nugget, $500,000 hard day one, $1 million hard day one.
Right.
But there are other ways you could, have a little bit of flight to safety, and that's really what.
Talk about that. You said you had a safety formula. I'd love to hear what.
Well, I want to buy newer vintage assets that don't have perpetual capex, and I want to do that while chasing yield. And that means sometimes I have to travel. I'm not.
But how do you ramp yield in this marketplace where rents have flatlined?
Okay. Great question. Okay. And I have, my answer to it. It doesn't have to be anybody else's answer. It's just my solution. So I want to buy newer vintage assets where the rents are below market.
Okay.
And in many cases, I'm buying them where they're artificially very much below market through affordable housing and so forth. And I'm typically buying 2000 vintage assets.
I'm sorry, I didn't track that. So you're saying you're buying them significantly below market because they're affordable assets, or help me understand what that means.
So let's say for example, I'm buying a tax credit property that is in the extended use period.
And it's about to expire.
Yeah, it may or may not be about to expire. It just doesn't have the recapture risk. So a regular market rate buyer can go ahead and buy that property. Whereas if it were in the compliance period with tax credit recapture risk, market rate guy might not buy that asset, and they might not sell it to you. But if it's in the extended use period, there's really no recapture risk. So let's just take a hypothetical. Let's say we buy whether it's 50 units or 200 units, it doesn't really matter. But you're buying an asset that's 2000 vintage, might have $700 rents in a $1,200 market, or might have $700 rents in a $950 rent market. That's artificially low rent on a newer vintage asset. I feel pretty good about that.
Oh yeah, you just bring them to market. You've created incredible value.
Sometimes you can bring them to market, and sometimes you can't get there because of the restrictions. However, who's at risk really? You're at risk when you're, let's say, an A asset at the very top of the market, or you're even a B asset at the top of the market, or a C asset at the top of the market. But if I have a B plus asset,
right,
and I have a C rental rate at the very low end of a C rental rate, I'm the last guy to get hit. And I'm always full. So if I just maintain, my curb appeal, and
you're always full. We've got an asset like that here in Bradenton. It's age restricted, but there's a waiting list all the time.
I love senior.
Yeah.
That's my favorite, probably.
Really?
Asset
No kidding.
type of senior housing.
Wow.
It's
interesting.
It's legal discrimination, quite honestly.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah. That's absolutely true. Yeah, no, that's very interesting. I hadn't looked at it like that, because you want to ramp value, but see, and you're not having to satisfy any investors other than yourself. And so, like our model is buy, ramp the value, refinance, get our investors all or most of their money back, and then returns are infinity, and we hang in there as a legacy asset if it makes sense to hold on to it. But in your model, it's a safety play then.
I have investment criteria, and the way I look at that, it's like traveling on the highway. So you have exit 1, exit 2, exit 3, exit 4, and I have a return target, and whether I can reach that on exit 1 or exit 2 or exit 3, I'm prepared to hold every asset forever if I have to.
Right.
But when I can meet my investment criteria, and it makes sense to turn the money, I do. I typically haven't recapitalized, but many of my friends say I should be doing that. I'd probably worth triple if I'd done that over the last 10 years. But I'm also not choked up with debt anywhere.
Right. So you like long-term debt? You do safe?
No, I don't do any long-term debt. No? I've been doing bridge debt for 20 years.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm still doing bridge debt right now.
No kidding.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in going long-term agency.
Any discomfort with today's bridge debt?
None whatsoever.
No? Huh. So have you? Well, obviously, I know you're very liquid. You flew down here in your own jet. You've got resources, but certainly your DSCR's taken a hit. Even with rate caps, got to have taken a bit of a hit. Have you got debt coming due in the next year or so?
I have one asset that I'll have to address, but
okay.
I'll write a check to buy down the debt and ride it out.
See, you're able to do that, and that's the thing.
I didn't come up that way.
Listen, I saw an interesting article. So if you wanted a rate cap for $100 million in 2020, a $100 million rate cap, 3% for 3 years, in 2020 it was $23,000. The same rate cap today, forget 3 years, you'd never get it. 1 year for 3% is $2.3 million. Now this was 6 months ago. It might even be worse now, but it was $2.3 million. So when you've got an operator that has to put money in to buy the debt down, and then they have to pay for that rate cap, I have an SEC attorney, buddy of mine, super large SEC attorney in Dallas, and he says right now half of his business is capital calls, forbearances, and foreclosures. Half. So
yeah, all that's too complicated for me. If I can't operate on fourth grade math, I don't want it.
Oh, I love that.
So
okay,
every asset I buy, I reverse engineer. Now
okay.
I have to underwrite to my exit. Somebody else may be thinking like that, and somebody else may be looking at the debt needs to make the deal. So I'll underwrite, reverse engineer it to that. When I go to exit, what's the next person going to want and or need?
Right.
And if I can
show some units fixed up, and
if I can meet my metric by executing and knowing that somebody else will come in and the cap rates and rate caps and so forth will work for them on the way out, then I know that that's a deal that's probably going to work for me. But I go through multiple steps prior. But most of my underwriting, honestly, is done in my head.
No kidding. Wow. So would you? Do you have a team, or is it mostly just you?
I have a very, very thin team for our unit count, particularly the amount that we transition. I don't have that many units. We're about 1,500 units at the moment. But like I said, I'm always simultaneously selling, 500 to 1,000 and buying 500 to 1,000. But we're 3-4 people at any given time at corporate level.
That's it. Wow.
And then we self-manage everything. Of course,
You do self-manage. Okay.
We have managers on site and maintenance people on site. I'm not really counting them, but
Mm-hmm.
back office, we're a total of 3 to 4 people at any given time.
That's it. You got accounting and some
Yeah, a bookkeeper and
asset management or something. Okay.
Sure, and then
Wow.
operations managers.
That's
But,
very lean and mean.
Yeah. So back to the really what I have in mind for really my safety play. It's not just the vintage. You really also want to look at your tenant profile, because if I'm going to go long term, in a changing market, you've really got to be prepared to go long term. So if I have a newer vintage asset and I have below market rents, the next thing I really want to look at is my tenant profile. Is the tenant profile in that market and in the entire submarket, are they people I could live with if I were in that economic?
So speak to what you mean by that.
If the culture is to get your hair done before paying rent, you may not,
Well said.
look at that as an investment grade tenant profile.
Gotcha.
So it just,
You look at where they work. You look at what their income is. I'm going to tell you my opinion. I'm not doing any C assets right now. I think they scare me because that demographic's getting their butts handed to them. I went to the grocery store. My ex used to buy all the groceries, and I said, $150 for that? Are you freaking kidding me? How do people afford this? And the clerk just shook her head. And so, those hand-to-mouth people are getting killed right now.
I think so. I want C rents on B assets.
Love it.
With a good tenant profile. And, if I have those things, I can weather, I think, what's coming my way.
Anything. So what states are you in, or do you like?
So I'm presently, I don't have a whole lot in Florida.
You said Carolinas?
At the moment. Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Mississippi, Alabama. I have some Oklahoma. We did Indiana last year, but that I don't have anything left in Indiana.
Okay.
But I'll generally go anywhere.
Now, and so you're always buying and selling, and no legacy holding stuff.
Well, I started very poor, so when I meet an investment criteria, and whether I'm making $1 million or $1.5 million or $2 million or $500,000 for that matter, or whatever the deal may provide, and somebody wants to pay me that profit, I take it and move on.
You take it.
Ultimately, I would, again, probably be worth double or triple if I'd held everything over the last 10 years. But I've turned myself into a deal junkie, and I can't seem to help it.
So you like it too. My first interview was a billionaire, a guy named Albert Beres. He owns McKinley Corporation in Lake Arbor. I don't know if you know Albert or not, but he told me something that kind of stuck with me, and I don't know if it's good advice or bad, but he said he's a real estate buyer, not a seller, that he regrets everything he's ever sold. So
I regret nothing I've ever sold.
No.
I'm happy for everybody that's ever bought a deal from me and made $1 million to several million behind me.
Yeah.
I can't do what I do without them being successful at what they do. And, I tend to have the same 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people buy from me over and over. And,
Really?
Their success is very important to me. And
what a great attitude. So just out of curiosity, what if you share it, what were you in before real estate? What framework did you have for this business? That's what I'm really trying to get at.
Well, I don't think...
was it an analytical background? No? What was it?
I have a high school GED. So I think that anybody, can engage in some way and some level. It really comes down to buying right if you have the ability to buy anything at all.
Right.
And making good choices along the way.
So good choices. I don't want to assume what you're saying. Tell me what you mean.
I don't think I really had any point much further than that. I think there wasn't any catalyst is really what I'm saying. There wasn't anything that launched me into this business. Right.
Made it happen. That was it.
I needed to support my family. And
right.
I needed to come up with something.
How did you get over the fear of getting into this business? Or was there a fear for you? I know it's a ways back, but I'm just curious.
Well, it's not like I walked away from anything to come into this business. I think if somebody's at a salary job and has some golden handcuffs, so to speak,
right,
that's hard to walk away from a steady paycheck to start something you're uncertain about. I didn't have that scenario. I was, arguably unemployed in the moment. So, I just started.
It was all hands on deck then.
Yeah, it was just all hands. I was fully engaged and fully committed. I thought I was just doing this as a side gig until I found something else. But I kept making money and I kept turning assets over until like I said, I made a big enough gain where I could buy multiple at the same time. And then I realized, oh man, I have a career here.
And you enjoy it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I over improve affordable housing. Generally, I have, great employees because they work at very nice places. I have happy tenants for the most part. I can't make everybody happy all the time, but we bring in finishes that are usually for just a higher demographic, and we bring it in at the most.
You bring it in
affordable
just a little
levels.
better than anybody else, and then that keeps your occupancy high.
So when I'm buying, I try to keep it very simple. I try to keep it on like fourth grade math, as I was saying. And then also from an operational standpoint, we try to keep it very, very simple. I run on what I call the 5 C's.
Okay, here, let's hear it.
So the first is curb appeal. Right. If you fix it up and you keep everything where somebody drives by and say, I'd like to live there, and that has to extend not only on the outside, but through the office and through the inside of the units as well. That's the first C. And if your curb appeal is in line, you'll always be at the next C, which is capacity. You'll be full. So if you have the curb appeal and you're at capacity, you just, from that point, need to be good at collections. And then you watch your costs, and that equals cash flow. So those simple 4 things equal the 5th C, and it doesn't have to be any more difficult than that. I know we all do our best to make it more difficult, but it really
is that simple. Yeah. So I'm just curious, do you utilize any higher level software that helps you manage your operations?
Actually, I try to use the dumbest down software we can find.
No kidding. Okay.
And I don't want to knock on my software company, but
all right.
So we've been using Buildium for 20 years. We're about to change to Appfolio, but
Appfolio is great.
Yeah.
I've heard great things about Appfolio.
Yeah, we're transitioning.
We have it at one of my assets, so the management company uses it. So how do you manage in-house when you're in these other states? Do you have the regional travels, or how do you handle
I love that question because I feel so strongly about it.
Okay.
Third-party management to me is death by 1,000 cuts.
I don't disagree with that at all.
To me, there's no surviving third-party management. Anywhere that you're gonna, build up some positive cash flow, they're gonna slice it out from under you one way or another. There's no one thing. Death by 1,000 cuts. An AC that cost me, probably $3,500. Third-party manager is gonna charge me, well, probably about $4,500 now.
Yeah.
A third-party management company, by the time I get that installed, might be $6,500 or $7,000. A refrigerator that, maybe cost me $800-900. A third-party manager is going to charge me $1,150. So it's in the aggregate, and it adds up, and it becomes meaningful. So, and by the way, if you have a third-party manager and you're not all hands on deck managing the third-party manager, you're going to get your lunch eaten.
Agreed.
So it's just as much work for me to manage a third-party manager as it is for me to manage my own manager.
Yeah.
So that's what we've done.
That's it.
And
so you've got your own jet, so you can fly and do asset management on your own. Do you have somebody that runs around for you to keep an eye on things? Because you want to visit these assets, not just give them to a manager, right?
So like, I grew up poor. I'm a street guy. I didn't. I know maybe I'm considered an old rich white man now.
Right.
But it sure didn't start that way. So I drive box trucks. I drive the box trucks. I load the furniture. I deliver the furniture. I set up the rooms. The clubhouses and community rooms. I might fly private there next week, but when the work is going down, I'm in the truck and I'm unloading the gear.
That shows how much you love it, because I love that stuff too.
It's rewarding.
Yeah.
I love the reveal when you come in and you have this dingy old clubhouse and you make it Class A and a C class asset. It's meaningful.
Yeah.
And I see the joy. I have some tenants come in and they shoot their whole Instagram in there and their Facebook pages in the clubhouse, and it's cool, man.
Love it.
Feel good about it.
So I have a lot of aspiring investors that listen to this show, hundreds of thousands, and they know they want to do something with their lives. They maybe work a job they don't particularly love. They know they'll never have time freedom, financial freedom, time to spend with their family that they really deserve unless they take action. And I say grind for a few years like most people won't, so they can live the rest of life like most people can't. Speak to those people for me.
Well, what I like about multifamily is I like to call it I'm making money while I'm making money. And what I mean by that is if you buy a piece of land or you buy a single family house, in large part, you have money going out constantly. Whereas, and maybe, you have the capital gains. But what I find with the multifamily is while I'm transitioning an asset and I'm collecting the rents, I'm also gaining on the equity side. So, I mean, it's just a little way I like to put it. I'm making money while I'm making money, and there's less risk in those type of investments. Sure, you could get that with other food groups, like whether it's office or industrial, et cetera. But
I wouldn't do office right now.
Yeah, I just, people need a place to live. We're not running out of poor people.
Right.
I mean, I find the high risk is in the higher rents, the Class A. But to be an affordable multi-housing, I think it's just, you can start at any level. I started with a duplex and a triplex.
Right. So just freaking do it. I hope that's what you're hearing. Okay. Just freaking do it. So, as your journey, think back and think back to any aha moments or any epiphanies where you're like, okay, now I get it. I know I'm asking a lot because you've been in the business long enough, but anything come to mind with that question? Any like aha moments as you were getting going in this business or along the journey?
When everybody's running for the hills, that's the time to buy.
Oh, no question. Warren Buffett's famous quote, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful, right?
Aren't we in the vicinity? I mean, look, we have some headwinds coming. There's no doubt.
No question.
The things that you were saying in the beginning, I in full agreement with your assessment of what's to come.
Right.
But there is capital.
Yeah.
I don't think the sky will fall. And if it does, it'll be temporary.
Right.
So when everybody's pencils down, you should be pencils up.
I agree with that 100%. I agree with you 100%.
And you know what you can do today that you couldn't do yesterday? When I say yesterday, I mean, of course, last year.
Right.
Last year, if you were going to buy anything in multifamily, particularly in Florida, in markets like Florida, you would have to pay the seller today for growth that you'll get tomorrow.
Right. You're buying off Proforma.
Yeah. And you have to pay up for it. And by the time you get it there, if rates move, you just worked for free for 2 years.
Right.
Whereas now you can buy a deal at current market cap rates.
Yeah.
While interest rates are high, while insurance rates are ridiculous.
Right.
And if you can make it in this moment and you're getting a buy at that basis.
When it settles down.
Yeah, you're going to be in pretty good shape. And even if we have headwinds to come, which we probably do, you buy a good tenant profile, you buy an asset that doesn't have perpetual CapEx, I'm ready to back the truck up personally.
Yeah.
That's look, I know
couldn't
we
agree
have some
more.
headwinds.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So in this progression of yours, in this journey of yours, starting out and along the journey, did you have any mentors that you leaned on?
I would have loved to have had a mentor like you.
That's kind of you to say that. I wasn't fishing for that.
No, I know, but it's true. No, I mean, I just
hard knocks.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to follow up that question then. Talk about a failure, a doozy. You got your ass handed to you, and the lesson in it, if you can think. I'm sure I know you've got tons of them like I do, but just think of a good one.
Well, I think for people starting out, and this happened to me when I started out, I just bought, it was like a 30 unit. I think at the time it was probably the biggest property I'd bought. I just redid the units and I just repaved my parking lot, and I thought, let me take it another level and let me put some really nice landscaping in. So, and these were big trees I was putting. It was a tall 2-story building and I wanted to have some greenery going up. Anyway, the guy with the backhoe breaks my water main, and the water's shooting 150 feet in the air, and all the neighborhood kids are playing in the water in my brand new parking lot. And I freaked out for a minute. And then what I realized is, okay, turn the water main off, call a plumber, and it's going to be okay. It's
what I love to say about the business is a check can fix just about anything.
Yeah,
that's what I love about
it. Was a $12,000 problem at the end of the day. Nobody wants to lose $12,000.
Right.
However, it wasn't catastrophic. But I think, just as a quick funny story, I was getting a really good value. So this property was in Charleston.
Okay.
And at the time, the market in Charleston was like nothing trades below 100 a door, and I was getting these townhomes that look good at like 56,000 a door.
Oh, Jesus!
So I went hard $1 million day one.
Oh yeah.
And without looking at anything, just a basis buy. And I get there, and once I take over, I realized that the toilets are flushing to the ground. They were on a stem wall about 4 feet in the air.
You're kidding me.
The plumbing was shot.
Oh my God!
So I had to get these guys in hazmat suits underneath there cleaning out, and it was a real mess. So that was no fun.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, we did okay.
That brought back, yeah. You still made money. We bought a 403 unit asset in Shreveport and didn't. And thank God I talked to a tenant. And the tenant said, those bottom units flood, and we got $1 million reduction in the price, and still bane of my existence. And we made money, but oh my God, it was a nightmare.
I've learned from that. I don't buy any subgradient units. Like sometimes you buy a property that's on a slope and the first floor is like in part subgradient. There are always moisture problems with those. So I just completely stay away
I completely agree. No, I completely agree. So you're obviously a leader. You have a small team, but you lead a team and you inspire that team. What do you think are some of the most important qualities that a leader should have in this business or any business, really?
I have to contemplate on that for a minute, but I think the number one's got to be integrity, right? I think,
number one core value.
But it's something that you said that I often say myself, people will always remember you for how you make them feel about themselves.
Yeah.
And, I think if you treat people with respect and let everybody know that they're an important part of the team, any of the successes I have don't happen without all my team around me.
Right.
My team, to me, expands way beyond the people that work with me and work for me. They're all my vendors, my roofers, my lenders.
I know where you're going with this. Great answer, man. That's a great answer.
You have to treat everybody, even the people that buy from me. I always look at them like they're my partners.
Frankly, the human race is a team if you really want to get serious
love that.
about it. Yeah, I love it too. So when you're building that team, and I'm talking about your internal team now, these hires that you make, any strategy in what you look for when you're aligning with people in this business or even outside the internal team? But what do you look for?
Well, I tell you the truth. I think that one of the things that I've learned is it's usually not the people that you let go that hurt you when you realize things are going sideways. It's the ones you hold on to.
Oh, yeah.
So if a relationship isn't going the way you want it, you're doing both sides a service to cut that sooner rather than later, and be candid about why.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't fire anybody ever. I never fire anyone.
Oh.
If somebody gets terminated, they fired themselves. The last thing in the world I want to do is fire an employee. So if it comes to pass that we have to do that, it's because they're not performing the benefit of the bargain. It's not like we stop paying them.
Okay.
But
you did help them. You do help them out the door. But
we'll terminate somebody.
Yeah,
but that's something that's self-inflicted.
Gotcha. No, I agree completely. And I like that you shift that in your head. I like that. So, what's some of the best advice that you've ever gotten about either life or this business?
Well, again, that's requires a little
No, I understand. I didn't prepare you for any of these.
That's awfully deep. I like the question. I like the challenge in answering that question. But in business, in our business in particular, I would, nobody makes money when they sell a property. We all make money on the buy and through the operations and executing a business plan. Yeah. And I think you can do that in any market, whether it's primary, secondary, or tertiary market.
Agreed.
In terms of life, my personal creed is balance. I created my own family creed of the 5 F's, which is faith, family, fitness, finance, and friends. And I think that we can all focus too much on one of those things for a little while, but if you're all on one side or the other of that without some balance, somewhere along the way your life blows out a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's just a guide, because we all are always heavy on something and not the other.
Right.
But if I'm getting too fat, I should probably stop eating Twinkies.
One of the exercises we do at my boot camps is we do this wheel and we pie chart it. In the middle is 0, the outside rim is 10, and you put in each segment you put an area, one of the 5 F's. You put family, friends, finances, health, all of that, and then you rate yourself from 1 to 10 in that wheel, and then you take a look at you shade on the inside, and you take how fast you're going to be able to go with that wheel. There's always unbalance, and it's a very illuminating. It's a sometimes painful exercise for people to do, and just to take a look at each area of their life, and then what I tell them is not to to breathe and get through it, and recognize very often that one area can very often ramp all the areas simultaneously, and to look at that. But
I think we're all out of balance all the time.
Yeah, agreed.
But the idea is to have a simple reminder that you contemplate on occasion to realize, okay, I've spent too much time in my business. Maybe I need to spend a little more family time.
Yeah.
If I'm going to the gym all day, every day, well, maybe my business is suffering.
Yeah.
And if I'm eating terrible, then, maybe, it just something that you have to kind of remind yourself on a regular basis that, hey, I might be a bit out of balance or a little bit off center. Let me just,
Yeah. Yeah. So do you goal set? Do you do goals? Do you talk? Do you you're obviously very, very driven. I'd love to know what the why is as well. But is there a mechanism or a routine or a thought process or a calendar thing that you do to
I've always goal set, and it started out as like a little handwritten note on the back of a business card.
Right.
And since I don't syndicate and since I don't really money raise, for me, it's never been assets under management. It's never been unit count. It's always been net worth growth. So my metric is, what my number is today and what my next goal was. And, sometimes when I lock down a property and I know what my exit's going to be on that, I'll move my net worth balance sheet, just because, and then I'll make that a reality. I'll manifest it over the course of the next year or two.
Of course.
But so I'll keep shifting
the end
that.
in mind. I love that.
Yeah. So I reverse engineer everything. And then when I take down a property that I see that's going to get me there, I'll go ahead and make that adjustment, and then I'll work for like a year or 2 years to make it real. And it's been...
That's a big clue, guys, okay? Because that ties right into... an exercise that I do where I manifest what I want as if I already have it. Okay. And that's how you do it. That's how I had 50 million to lose and how I got it back, by that exact same strategy in a different framework. I'll do like a little manifestation thing where I'll do gratitude, grateful for my people in my life that I love, my kids, my foundation, my coaching students, and then I'll do gratitude for the things that I want as if I already have them. And it's a little different but it is similar because you're manifesting, you're working towards what you believe you already have.
You have to see it. If you don't see it, even if it's just mentally, then it's nice to write it down.
Yeah.
But if you don't see it, how do you achieve it?
Yeah.
So,
By the way, guys, I want to salute Jay here because almost everybody that sits in that seat has an agenda, and he came here with no agenda, came here on his own dime in his jet, which is not cheap, just to add value. And I really have massive respect for you over that. I just want to tell you that.
Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's truth. It's truth.
I love what we do.
When you love what you do, work is play, right?
Yeah.
So, knowing what you know now, I love to ask this question of super successful people that sit in that seat. If you could go back and tell 18-year-old self Jay something, what might you do differently?
Oh man, that's a scary question because
I know, but
I was as knuckleheaded as you could get, and quite honestly, so I'm 57 today, and
today,
not today.
Oh, okay.
In this moment,
gotcha. Okay.
But I probably didn't grow up till I was in my 40s.
Yeah.
So, going back to my 18-year-old self, as just something I can't fathom that.
No.
But,
yeah. Right.
I think that it's a journey.
Yeah.
I think that for people who are motivated and driven, it's going to happen for you.
Yeah.
As long as you don't give up. And much of it is enjoy the journey along the way.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Is there a book that you gift more than others? Because you've got people in your circle. I know you have people that say, "How'd you do it?" And you have those types of interactions. Is there something that you gift that has inspired you more than another?
Just the Real Estate Bible of Mr. Kiyosaki.
Yeah, Kiyosaki's book.
Yeah, Kiyosaki.
Of course.
It's just such a great book.
Oh yeah.
So it's the only really real estate book that I've ever completely dove into.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I just,
That's crazy.
I'm a surfer. I love to surf, but I don't watch surfing. I watch other sports that I don't play, but I'm in this. I've been doing it a long time. I feel like we solve problems in the real estate business for a living. Multi-housing in particular. I don't know that I need to read so many people's books. I think that I just need to execute my business plan. But I will say, when I started, I read that book. I've given that book out at least 20 times. And I think it holds true today just as much as it ever has. And it's probably one of the best real estate books ever written.
Actually, all of his books are fantastic, and I agree completely. And pretty much anybody that gets into real estate has to or has already read that book. So here's a question.
Well, I don't think I even mentioned it. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, obviously we're talking about for anybody who doesn't know.
Oh, no, everybody knows. Trust me. Everybody knows Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What's the drive? Where does that drive come from that gets you to jump out of bed and keep this train going and keeps you motivated and driven? Is it the goals? Is it what's the why actually is what I'm asking? Is it family? What is it?
Well, I guess I've always had some fear of having my children grow up without, like I did. Now, my family had a whole lot of love in it,
right?
But we didn't have much of any money. I grew up in a flea-infested, roach-infested trailer.
Wow.
We left a box of Cheerios out. It had bugs in it. So to this day, I keep Cheerios in the refrigerator.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I guess I've done that. All my children are grown now. Mm-hmm. The last 3 have recently graduated college and they're off doing their thing. But the fear of having them go without has always been
that was the driver. So it was a
driver.
Negative driver. When I do goal setting, I do a goal setting workshop every New Year's Day. If you're listening and you haven't done your freaking goals, go to rodslinks.com. It's at the bottom. There's a guide you can download. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. People spend more time planning a freaking birthday party than they do designing their lives. That's designing your life. But one of the pieces of that, when I have them write their whys, I have them write their why they want it. But then I also have them write the negative reason why, so I don't feel like a failure, so I don't fail my kids, so I don't fail my spouse, so I don't live a life of regret. Put some freaking pain in there. So that's what drove you. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's never been like, oh, I want to be rich.
Right.
It's just, it was never that. It was, I always wanted to be able to provide for my family, and the fear of not being able to really, really scared me a lot.
Okay. Yeah. Very interesting that you answered that way, because most people don't lead with that. It's always the family or a positive thing. So I'm really glad that you said that. What's your definition of success?
Oh, I think probably the balance.
The balance.
I think the balance of the 5 F's. I want healthy, happy, successful, safe, children.
Right, right.
And also, to me, benefit of the bargain. Like, I'm transactional by large part. And it's not a success if only I win or if only the other party wins. So I like win-win situations. I think everybody getting the benefit of the bargain is critical to anybody's success, because it's not sustainable.
I had an old woman tell me that once. A woman loaned me millions of dollars. She said, always leave meat on the bone, is the way she described it. And
it's kind of my business model.
Yeah, I love that. If you could teach school children one thing for maybe an hour a week that they're not getting, what might it be? Or how do you feel about that whole dynamic? I'm just curious.
Times have changed. When we came up, it was always get a job, save, build a retirement account. And today, it's much more an entrepreneurial spirit. So I think the more we teach children independence and how to count on themselves, I think that is a path to success that maybe we didn't get when we were younger. So I don't know, pretty far away from the education system these days. Yeah. But, I like to teach children to have confidence in themselves.
And curiosity. I think those are the 2 biggest things that I love. Confidence and self-confidence and curiosity.
Yeah. I think curiosity is inherent with all kids for the most part.
Yeah. I suppose you're probably right. I meet people that aren't curious as they're adults, and I feel sad for them, because to me that's, life is about being curious and learning and growing. And what do you think is the most common reason that people give up, in this business or any business?
Well, it's got to be rejection. Some people feed and have to have recognition all the time.
Yeah.
Other people don't necessarily need quite so much recognition, but we all do need to feel like we're succeeding in some way or another. And I think rejection is probably the biggest stumbling block. And I think the people starting out, especially when it comes to capital raise, because if you're not already wealthy, how do you come up with down payment money? I mean,
sure,
it's a difficult thing. But one of the things I've learned over time, and maybe it's because I've had so many transactions that have been successful, but it just seems like money is actually easy to come by. if you have the right deal and you have a right scenario, you're going to get your capital
Have
raised.
you done any joint ventures, or has it been all your own money?
So I do about probably somewhere between, at any given time, 30 to 70% of my deals are with my own money. But for the most part, the last few years, I have one or two
People
partners.
with money. Yeah.
Just
There's a lot of money where you live. So
friends
it's
and family.
probably not hard finding money over there.
I couldn't possibly do a syndication and raise,
Right.
5, 6, 7, 10, $20 million, but I can make one phone call and raise $10 million.
No kidding.
And again, that's not something I came up with. That's something I've earned over.
Oh, of course. No,
over
of course,
a long period of time. That check in the beginning was maybe 500,000, then it was $1 million, then it was $2 million.
Right.
So.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. You build a relationship. So what are you not good at?
I don't like to read directions. I don't like to read in general.
The assembly required those two words strike horror in my heart. So on that.
I was taking flight lessons, and what I realized is, man, I'm going to kill myself
because
there are so many checklists to being a pilot.
Right.
And it's just not in my DNA.
Yeah. When you said you were flying down here, I thought you actually had, like a propeller plane. You're flying yourself down here, because I had somebody recently that did. But no, I feel the same way. I couldn't do it. I've got great friends that are pilots, but I absolutely couldn't do it. So you obviously now, and you know what, I'm not going to say obviously, but I feel like you're working on your legacy now. Would that be an accurate statement?
I've been kind of at that for a little while now.
Have you? Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, I could probably not work again.
Right, of course.
But I'm really, I have 5 kids, and I'm trying to, build a legacy for those guys and try to launch them in every way I can. But
are any of them interested in what you do?
Yeah, I have. My daughter's just started a job at Greystone in New York City.
No kidding?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
So
what a great framework.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a really good place to start.
Yeah.
She'll ultimately come in. She's already doing some of her own deals.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that, I still have some growing to do myself. I still have a grind.
We stop growing, we die. So
I think so.
Yeah.
That's what's nice about being in a position like I am now, is I get to. And for anybody who's had a successful career, you get to, as you get older, there's no stopping. You just pick and choose what you do. There's no real retiring.
Right.
You just pick and choose what it is you're doing in these days.
Agreed. Yeah, it was sad to see Sam go last year, or was it earlier this year? Sam Zell, what a success story that guy was. Do you have any, I've got favorite landlord-tenant stories and favorite stories from work. Do you have any favorite stories that you like to tell us as maybe amusing? Anything come to mind? Because I'm sure you've got some. Like that water spraying up 150 feet.
I have one more story like that. It's really the only other thing that's like notable over a long haul.
I find that hard to believe, but okay, I'll let you let that slide by.
Well, there was just in that same... No, actually, it's the Charleston apartment complex that I had the sewage problem with. We had just renovated our office, which was in a unit, by the way. So the thing was beautiful. We really Class A'd it up. Right. And then the manager had called in Roto-Rooter to jet out the apartment next to where the office is.
I know where this is going.
And
God.
Simultaneously, she didn't know they were out there. Her boyfriend was the maintenance person at the time, and he's taking the P-trap off in the kitchen. And so they're standing there in front of the cabinet with the door open as Roto-Rooter jets, and it was feces, floor to ceiling, everywhere, up their nose, in the hair.
Oh, God.
So that's probably, that is by far the worst story
my God.
that I have.
That's crazy. I'll tell you a quick story of mine. So, I owned 800 houses at one point, and I had a house on a canal down here south of us here. And I get a call from Wink TV here in Sarasota, and like, is this Rod Cleef? Yes. Do you own the house at so-and-so Boyle Terrace? I said, yes. Have you seen the news? No. And they said, well, they just busted your tenant with, it was in the tonnage of cocaine, and It was a Colombian drug lord, and they're like, we'd like to interview you. And I'm like, this is the time of Pet Escobar and blowing up planes, and I'm like, there's no freaking way you're getting me on a camera. But that was. Yeah,
what do you say to that?
I said no, I'm not going to get interviewed. But what was interesting is the guy had 800 credit score, and I mean, when they have that high of a credit score, you typically don't even look much further than that. But he was a total drug dealer. But anyway,
one of the things that changing gears a little bit.
Sure.
One of the things that I have found helps me a lot with the stresses of day-to-day life and operations is, I heard this in a movie once when I was, a little bit younger. and somebody said, action is the enemy of thought. And this was somebody that was going through a breakup, and somebody was trying to talk to her, and she was doing gardening or whatever. And
action is the enemy of fear too.
So I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah.
I like it. So when I get really stressed out, I just get outside and start doing some manual labor. And particularly on the asset, if an asset's got me going, or even if I'm just at home, but any kind of, everybody's got their own thing. Some people like to pressure wash, some people like to clean, gardening, whatever it is. But whenever I get stressed out, I kind of just dive into some manual labor for whether it's an hour or 2 hours or the whole day. And, it gets me through.
Yeah, no, same here. I mean, anytime, achievers like us have stress, which is just fear, a massive action always mitigates it for me, and it will for you too. If love it, and whether it's working with your hands or just really attacking the problem with everything you can think of, you'll be able to sleep at night, because you've dealt with it, you've worked on it, even if it doesn't turn out fantastic. Great tip, absolutely great tip. So you're still buying, you're still selling. Is it hard? I'm assuming it's harder to sell right now because people are having trouble getting financing. No?
I think it's healthy. I think that if you're trying to sell strictly on Proforma, you're done. That's not happening.
Right.
And if you're holding out for every last dollar,
right,
you're also done.
Right.
Because a buyer that pays you, the top dollar in this moment likely either cancels or retrays you.
Right.
And or the bank doesn't lend.
Mm-hmm.
So you really just have to be at market acceptable rates right now. And let's face it, it's got to be somewhere in line with interest rates or just north of where rates are.
Right.
And the more meat you have on the bone for a buyer, the more likely you are to close. So there's been a big disconnect between buyers and sellers for the past 12 or 18 months. And I think that's starting to fall a little bit more in line.
I'm surprised you're selling anything right now. You obviously don't need to sell.
Yeah, I think it's kind of my I-95 or highway analogy. When you meet your investment criteria and there's an exit available to you, I take it, and I'm at that on every asset. So, the market's come down quite a bit, and we're money good on everything.
That's great. That's great. We talked briefly before we started recording about your idea of having kind of like a little Shark Tank. Why don't you speak to that? I'd love to put it out there.
Well, it's something that I would really enjoy doing.
Right.
I think that partnership with you and use this venue to get it out there. We'd like to invite a whole bunch of people to a full day of a workshop training that also it has a Shark Tank feature where whether it's 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 people put together their best pitch. We do a little pitch deck, and they come with the idea to raise equity for the down payment.
And they stand in front of them trembling, and you've got fund people there to talk to them?
That would be the idea. We would have people that have funds that are desperate to put this money out.
Right.
And then you have people on the other side that are desperate to get money to do good deals. And if you bring a deal that's worthwhile, you probably leave with the equity you need.
Yeah. No, I love the idea.
So,
I absolutely love it. I've seen other people in my industry try it, but I think with your connections and background, we could really have some fun with that. And
well, you have something coming up. What is?
I've got my Orlando Bootcamp, September 15th through the 17th. It may be too soon.
That's too soon for that. Plus, I'm in Europe at that time frame.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do a second one, I'd love to bring a handful of guys that have long histories of operational success that can be on a panel or that can help do an education portion and then lead up to a pitch deck.
We will make that happen.
And then we do that with like I have several friends that have funds that are they've been great operaters and now they're just getting older, and rather than retire they're actually lending money now. So, or not lending money but investing money in people's deals. So it would be
that'd be fun. It'd be a lot of fun, and so we're definitely gonna be bringing that out here at some point. I will tell you, we will make that happen because I'd love to just be a fly on the wall for it, frankly. So, do you have any morning routines that a lot of super successful people have this thing they do every morning? Sometimes it involves motivation or prayer or manifestation or exercise or all the above. Is there anything that you do consistently that might have aided your success?
I don't have anything that I did consistently in the morning that may have aided my success. However, I do something consistently now because I'm an old man. And, I walk like 4, 5, 6 miles first thing every morning. I used to run, but
Right, same here. Tore my meniscus, both knees.
Yeah.
Now I ride this gay little elliptical bike around the neighborhood to the amusement of my neighbors. But
but the walk it's nice because you get your exercise in, and I can actually.
But you can think too.
I can think.
Right.
I can go quiet, and I can get my thoughts together, or I can get on the phone and work the whole way. So, I'm kind of checking a couple of F's of my, the fitness and the finance at the same time, or maybe I'm making social calls or whatever it is. So that's been nice.
It's a great way to start.
It's been a nice
day.
routine.
You have a nice little area around your place. You can do that.
I mean, I happen to now at this time, but even if I didn't, I would still
do it.
Yeah,
still do it.
Would still make a track. Yeah. One of the things that I do that's a little bit different is I tend to over improve assets, especially affordable homes.
Okay.
When I say affordable, it's not just affordable means different things to different people.
Right. It's a very global thing.
Well, if you're in my business, affordable means income restrictions. Mm-hmm. But if you're a layperson, affordable just means a house that doesn't cost much. Mm. But affordable to me means it's either HUD HAP or it's LIHTC. Mm-hmm. So tax credit property.
Right.
But one of the things that I've always done is I really over improve these assets. And I get a lot of like, why? Why do you do that? And I think we probably really already covered, and we probably don't have to hit it again.
But actually, I think it's good to hammer it home, because when you have an asset in any market and you're above your competitors and your improvements, I mean, you're going to stay full all the time.
Well, if you don't keep up your asset, it's a perpetual cycle. So what happens is, if you let somebody move out and you don't, bring that unit back up to a high standard, the quality of the tenant that you're going to put back in there is just a little bit worse.
Yeah.
And then now Granny next door doesn't want to live next to that person. So Granny moves out. And then now the quality of that unit goes down a little bit. And it starts a cycle that brings assets from B to C and C to C minus.
Yep.
So reinvesting and keeping your property up to a very high standard is critical. It's just absolutely critical to the success. That's why curb appeal is our first, C in our 5 C's.
Love it. If you weren't in real estate right now, what else might you be doing?
What else would I like to do,
yes,
or what else would I be doing?
Well, and in business.
Well, I can fantasize about what I would like to do.
Okay.
And I would love to be like a sports agent. I mean,
really?
That would be super fun.
Like a sports agent where you're actually signing up the latest.
I love the art of the deal. I love putting deals together. I love bringing people together.
So you like Jerry Maguire.
I love that movie. I haven't seen that movie in quite some time. I did watch
an awesome movie.
Yeah.
Show me the money.
Yeah, right. That's great. But it's just something that's always been interesting because I like sports and I like business, and it's at a high level. And I think some of those guys are the sharpest of the sharp. They're also relatively cutthroat, but I don't want to be cutthroat, but I don't mind navigating around those types.
Interesting.
But I love the art of the deal. I love.
It's a good book, actually.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but I.
Oh, haven't you? It's Trump's book. Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's a good book. The Art of the Deal. Nice. Yeah, so that gets the juices flowing when you've got a deal. Do you love the negotiation piece of it as well?
My favorite part of a deal cycle is identifying it, reverse engineering it, negotiating it, and then I get a little bit of a rise out of the renovation, but the completion of the renovation I love. Like, when
the finished product.
Yeah, the finished product is great. And then it's just normal operations, which kind of bores me. And until which point, we go full cycle. But the sale is like, it's anticlimactic because whatever we're going to get in that moment, I've already factored it. So it's the transition that I really like.
You're the artist archetype and the entrepreneur archetype. Those 3 archetypes. There's the artist who's the innovator, the creator, innovator, creator, and then there's the entrepreneur that brings it to market, just wants to get it going and then get out, and then there's the manager leader. you're not the manager leader. And the same here. I mean, I'm the entrepreneur as well, but those are the three archetypes, according to Tony Robbins. And it made sense to me the way he describes them. And, the manager leader is the nurturer, and they keep the thing going and, yawn. but
it's just,
yeah.
So it's not something I don't enjoy the day-to-day monotony of it. I like
some people do. Some people love it.
And we have people that thrive at it, quite honestly.
Yeah. So I want to circle back to one thing I asked you previously. So, again, they've got so many listeners that just know they need to do something. Is there anything you could say that might inspire them to take action?
Well, it just depends on really in what regard. When you say they need to do something.
Well, they need to do something other than their W-2 job. They need to, and I tell people, pick a freaking vehicle, because there's opportunities in all sorts of different vehicles. I think there's going to be opportunities to buy businesses. But
I think so. I mean, before I really got into this, I was shopping businesses. I looked at medical billing companies and this business and that business. And it's just so hard to make sense of any of it. But when it comes to buying real estate, I mean, obviously, when you buy one deal and you manage that one deal, maybe the positive cash flow is not going to change your life. But it does start a journey, and life is a series of events, and the journey that you start by investing in real estate, it begins somewhere. And if you make a good investment, more than likely that's going to lead you into another good investment and additional investments. And whether you take those full cycle or hold them long term, everybody's path may be a little bit different, and investment strategies may be a little bit different, but we know we all have to start somewhere. Yeah.
You just got to take that first step. You take that first step in faith. I call it the law of the first deal. Typically the scariest, the hardest, takes the longest. I see it with my students all the time. Then they get one, and next thing I know, they have three. They realize that the only limitation was between their ears. But
I think in the beginning, a lot of people don't like to exit their property. Some people are like, hey, I'm making positive cash flow on this. Right. Why should I get rid of it? And especially people who have a W-2 job in addition. But sometimes if you're really going to grow in this career, you have to take those little successes. You have to go a full trip, full cycle on a few different assets.
Or raise money.
It's never been my thing. So I don't.
No, I get. No, I'm glad you're sharing your model, because obviously it's extremely successful, and it is for others as well. But the thing I will tell you is, if you don't have the money, you can raise the money. I've got students that have raised hundreds of millions.
Well, it's interesting, because what's going on today, if you're good in your deal structure, and I've actually helped a couple people do this recently.
Nice.
You can get your portion of the equity through the art of the deal. Let's say, just take a hypothetical. Let's say you're buying a property. Let's just say it's for argument's sake, a $2 million purchase. Okay. We'll just use a small number for now. So if you either may or may not have a real estate license, but even if you don't, I think you can negotiate in a consulting fee. So let's say you don't really have the equity you need. Right. Most investors are going to, LP investors are going to require you to have what percentage of your own money, would you say?
We put 10% in, but whatever.
Okay. So in this case, it would be $200,000.
Right.
So you have a $2 million sale. The seller of that, if you can go
No. A $2 million sale, you wouldn't. Oh, you're talking about raising all the cash. No debt in that example. Okay.
No, let's just talk about the equity portion. So if you're a $2 million purchase, let's say it's $1.5 million mortgage, $1.2 million mortgage, somewhere.
All right, so you're raising $500,000.
$500,000
just for illustration purposes.
So in that case, you probably
$50,000.
That's so easy to negotiate into a deal,
right?
In the terms of a consultant fee or a commission if you have a license,
right?
So you really don't need any money if you have the right deal.
No, agreed. I mean, I agreed. I have students that bought thousands of doors. Myself, I've got 5,000 that I don't have a dime in. I mean, that's the business now, but it takes longer to get the cash flow, because you're typically offering a preferred return to your investors, and that's got to be satisfied. Then you're repositioning the asset. You got to give them their money back before you really start seeing some cash flow. So the only cash you're getting is acquisition fees, which are not insignificant, or a consulting fee, like you said, however you structure it. But it's different. I think your model, if you can use your own money, is more lucrative, faster. And you know, I love it.
You have to start somewhere.
But you got to start.
You have to start with whatever's available to you.
Thank you.
So if that's what it is, the main thing is never buy a deal because you need to generate those fees for your
agreed. And there are operators that did it these last couple of years that are sucking wind right now, that were too aggressive. They weren't conservative. You know, I've seen these operators, they don't have operating reserves.
It's just not sustainable.
No, it's not.
You have to, if you buy a deal under any of those scenarios, and even though you might not have as much equity as you otherwise would like, if you're buying right, and even though you have high leverage with the pref and everything, it'll work out.
Right.
And then those checks will get much larger.
Yeah, agreed. Don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait, right? So I'm out of questions. I mean, I've really enjoyed this conversation, brother. I got to tell you, this has really been a lot of fun for me. And like I said, I'm so grateful that you actually came down here. You came over on your own dime and just to add value, and absolutely want to help you realize that.
I think the time is right now. I think that, again, if you can buy a deal based on today's interest rates, on today's insurance rates,
right? You're golden. I mean, honestly, I think Florida is going to go crazy. I mean, the political environment, people moving in here, in my opinion, I think that you're going to see California prices here at some point.
Yeah, I think we're heading that direction. That's for sure. And other markets too, like Mecklenburg County, which is Charlotte in North Carolina, has been a very, very strong market with job influx.
So you seek out, HAP and LIHTC properties.
I'm a market rate guy, but 95% of what I own is LIHTC in the moment.
No kidding.
But not HAP. I mean, I have HAP contract properties, but I just don't want them.
I see. But you like LIHTC. Yeah, okay.
Because I really, that's a bear to manage. So I do third party on those, and I just hate it. So I'm moving away from the HUD HAP contract deals. Gotcha. But LIHTC it's just like owning a market rate property.
Gotcha. And no desire to hold legacy assets and just cash flow.
Sure.
Okay.
Every deal I buy, I figure I've got to hold as a legacy asset. Just when somebody,
makes you an offer you can't refuse.
Yeah,
and it's done. Gotcha.
But
gotcha.
I'm in it for the long haul for each and every one.
Nice. Well, listen, Jay, I'm super grateful you coming down here, and I'm really serious about we're going to make that Shark Tank thing happen, because that'll be awesome. And like you said, we can probably get people to help sponsor it and make it a little or nothing investment for the people that want to enjoy it, So
it's a win.
Yeah, love it. Well, I appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you coming down.
Appreciate the invite.
So one other quick thing. We encounter so many people that are frankly frustrated. They're looking in the mirror and they're frustrated that they haven't been able to escape the rat race. They haven't been able to build cash flow to the point where they're able to have financial and time freedom with their families. And maybe they see other people buying real estate and creating, incredible cash flow, and they think, well, it's just scary. Buying apartments is intimidating. And I get it. But see, that's why we created our Warrior Mentorship Program. They're our coaching students, and they've had extraordinary results. My students, I've been teaching about 5 years, and they own upwards of 140,000 units now that we know of, right? And we feel like it's just getting going. Now, we're looking to grow this group and really take it to the next level. And honestly believe that the greatest transfer of wealth could be upon us right now with this current economic environment. Everything's going on sale. So we're looking for people who want to follow a proven framework, really like a blueprint or a map, literally step by step. And then they're able to leverage our systems and our incredible network to raise money and equity, to find deals and close those deals and build partnerships, really nationwide. So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become more in our incredible network and take advantage of the unbelievable opportunities that are upon us, you can apply to my Warrior Mentorship Program by texting the word CRUSH to 72345, or you can go to mentorwithrod.com. And what we'll do is we'll set up a call so you can check us out and we can check you out and see if it's a fit. Now, again, you can go to mentorwithrod.com or text the word CRUSH to 72345 to apply, and we will speak soon.